Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive, this time into the world of hypnosis.
Ooh,
Um, and this is a topic that one of you specifically asked for.
okay.
So I'm really interested to dive into this one and see what we find out. I mean, for me, I think I've always been fascinated with hypnosis, but in a kind of like pop culture
Yeah.
way, like,
Yeah.
stage shows
Oh, yeah.
and making people cluck like a chicken or something.
Totally. That's the image that a lot of people have, right?
Right,
That's sort of like vaudeville stage hypnotist.
right.
But, to really understand it, we need to look beyond that sort of entertainment aspect
Okay.
and look more at the science of it.
Okay, so where do we even begin?
Well, a good place to start is with a research design that's been used in hypnosis studies for over 75 years, and it involves
Okay.
giving the same suggestion to people, some of whom have undergone a hypnotic induction and some of whom haven't.
So you're saying there's like two groups.
Two groups.
One's hypnotized, one's not,
Right.
and they're both given the same suggestion.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm hooked already. What happens?
Well, what they've found consistently is that anything that can be achieved through hypnosis can also be achieved through suggestion alone.
Wow, so you're saying that the classic image we have of the swinging pocket watch and inducing this trance-like state,
Right.
that's not the key factor at all.
It's really not.
It's more about the suggestion.
Exactly. It's the power of suggestion that seems to be driving the bus here.
Wow. Okay.
And, that idea of a special hypnotic trance,
Yeah.
that's really more of a popular misconception than a scientific reality.
Yeah.
So if we shift our focus to the power of suggestion,
Yeah.
we can gain a much deeper understanding of how we're influenced, not just in hypnosis, but in all aspects of our lives.
Okay, you're blowing my mind a little bit here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm already kind of questioning everything I thought I knew about hypnosis.
Yeah.
But what about those kind of classic hypnotic phenomena you see in movies and stage shows?
Yeah.
Like, making someone forget their name or see something that's not there.
Right.
Can suggestion alone really explain those really bizarre effects?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, involuntary movements.
Okay.
Early theories attributed that to this mysterious force called animal magnetism.
Right.
But now we understand that it's really just the power of suggestion at play.
Right.
The same goes for things like, experiencing partial paralysis or memory distortions, even hallucinations.
Wow.
All of these can be elicited without any formal hypnotic induction.
So it's not about being in some sort of special trance state. It's just how suggestible a person is.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that suggestibility is something we all experience in everyday life.
Mm.
You think about the influence of advertising or the persuasive power of a charismatic speaker,
Totally.
or even how easily we can be swayed by the opinions of our friends and family.
Yeah, and I can totally see that. Like in my own life, I know I've definitely felt pressure to buy things I didn't really need just because it seemed like everyone else was doing it,
Yeah.
There's like this unspoken social pressure, almost like a mass suggestion or something.
You're hitting on a key point there, and while that term mass hypnosis might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie,
Yeah.
the underlying principle is this very real power of suggestion that operates on a societal level.
Wow.
So we'll delve into that fascinating aspect a little bit later on, but for now,
Okay.
let's shift our focus to how these principles of suggestion are being used in more therapeutic settings.
That's a great segue. I'm really
Yeah.
interested to hear more about that. I know from the research that you provided that hypnosis is used for a variety of conditions, but I'm really curious to understand how it works in practice.
Yeah. Well, one area where it's shown promising results is in managing pain. For instance, a study by Patterson and Jensen in 2003
Okay.
highlighted how effective hypnosis can be in reducing acute pain in adults.
So how does that work?
Beto.
I mean, pain management is obviously a huge issue for so many people.
It is.
It about completely blocking out the pain or?
It's not necessarily about blocking it out entirely, but rather about changing the way pain is experienced.
Okay.
So hypnosis can help people dissociate from the pain,
Hmm.
redirect their focus away from it, or even reframe their perception of the sensation itself.
So it's more about empowering people to manage and cope with their pain rather than just masking it.
Exactly. And this can be especially helpful for people dealing with chronic pain, offering them a way to improve their quality of life without relying solely on medication.
That's incredible. I mean, it sounds like hypnosis is this really powerful tool for tapping into that mind-body connection
Right.
and helping people manage their pain in a more holistic way.
Absolutely.
What about other therapeutic applications? I
Yeah.
know the articles that you shared mentioned things like anxiety reduction and treating phobias.
Yeah, hypnosis can be incredibly effective in these areas as well,
Okay.
particularly because it allows therapists to access the subconscious mind, where a lot of these anxieties and fears originate.
So instead of just dealing with the surface level symptoms, it's about going deeper and addressing the root cause of the problem.
Exactly. By tapping into the subconscious, therapists can help individuals identify and reframe negative thought patterns,
Okay.
challenge those deeply ingrained beliefs that might be holding them back, and develop new, more adaptive ways of coping with their fears and anxieties.
That sounds incredibly empowering. Are
Yes.
there specific techniques used in those types of therapeutic settings?
Yes.
I know one of the articles you shared focusing on Gestalt therapy mentioned something called part therapy
Yeah.
and ego state therapy.
Yeah, those are both powerful techniques that can be integrated with hypnosis. So, part therapy involves identifying and working with different parts of the personality.
Okay.
So, for instance, imagine a part that's driven by fear,
Right.
another part that wants to maintain a sense of safety,
Yeah.
and yet another part that longs for connection. Hypnosis can be used to help facilitate communication between these different parts.
So it's like mediating a peace treaty within your own mind.
Yeah, exactly. And that can lead to a greater understanding of oneself and resolving internal conflicts.
Wow. What about ego state therapy? How does that differ from part therapy?
So, ego state therapy focuses on identifying and addressing distinct ego states within the personality, which are often formed in response to past experiences,
Okay.
especially traumatic ones.
Gotcha.
These ego states can hold unique memories, emotions,
Huh.
and even their own sets of beliefs, and sometimes they conflict with each other, creating internal discord and psychological distress.
So these ego states, while distinct, are all part of the same individual.
Exactly, and hypnosis can be used to access and communicate with these different ego states,
Right.
allowing for the processing of past traumas,
Wow.
the integration of conflicting beliefs, and ultimately a more unified sense of self.
This is all so fascinating. It's like we're peering behind the curtain of the human psyche and gaining a deeper understanding of how these complex inner workings influence our thoughts and feelings and ultimately our behaviors.
Right.
And it makes me wonder if suggestion is so powerful on an individual level, what kind of impact does it have on a larger societal scale?
That's a crucial question and one that we'll explore in detail next time. But before we move on, let's quickly recap what we've covered so far.
Absolutely. It seems like the key takeaway is that the true power of hypnosis lies in suggestion, not some mystical trance state.
Right.
And this power of suggestion plays a significant role in both individual and societal contexts.
Exactly. And it's this very power of suggestion that we'll be exploring further as we delve into the fascinating world of mass hypnosis and how it might be shaping our collective reality.
I can't wait. Stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah,
We'll be right back after a short break.
sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of hypnosis. Before the break, we were talking about the incredible power of suggestion, both on an individual level and, within the larger context of society.
Yeah, and you really got me thinking about this idea of mass hypnosis. Like
Right.
how we might be influenced by suggestion
Yeah.
on a collective level. It's a little bit unsettling, to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely a thought-provoking concept. And while the term mass hypnosis might sound a little dramatic, we're not talking about some evil mastermind,
Right.
controlling everyone's minds or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, think of it more as a metaphor for how subtle forms of suggestion can shape our beliefs and behaviors on a larger scale.
So it's not about like mind control, but more about how we're constantly bombarded with
Yeah.
messages and influences that kind of shape our perceptions of reality.
Exactly. Think about the pervasive influence of advertising,
Oh, yeah.
the persuasive power of political rhetoric,
Right.
the impact of social media trends.
Yeah.
All of these things tap into our innate human desire to belong, to
Yeah.
conform, to be part of the group. And, this makes us more susceptible to suggestions, even if those suggestions are not in our best interest.
It's like we're swimming in a sea of information and influence.
Yeah.
And it's easy to kind of get swept away by the currents if we're not paying attention.
That's a great analogy. And that's where the importance of critical thinking and
Right.
self-awareness comes in.
Yeah.
Because, if we're not mindful of how these subtle forms of suggestion are operating, we risk becoming passive consumers of information
Okay.
rather than active participants in shaping our own beliefs and values.
It's about recognizing that we have a choice in what we allow to influence us, right?
Right, absolutely. It's about becoming conscious creators of our own reality
Hmm.
rather than just passively absorbing whatever messages are being thrown at us. The article on Gestalt therapy that you provided
Yeah,
really emphasizes this point. Developing personal awareness
right,
and learning to express ourselves authentically can help us navigate these subtle currents of influence
right.
more effectively.
So it's not about like rejecting all external influence,
Right.
but about being more mindful of how it's operating
Yeah.
and making conscious choices that align with our own values.
Exactly. It's about questioning the messages that we're receiving,
Okay.
evaluating their validity,
Yeah,
and ultimately deciding what resonates with our own understanding of the world.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, this all kind of ties back to our earlier discussion about suggestibility.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned that suggestibility is something that we all experience in our daily lives.
Yes.
Um, But are there certain personality types or individuals who are more susceptible to suggestion than others?
That's a great question. And while everyone is susceptible to suggestion to some degree, research suggests that certain personality traits might make some individuals more receptive
Okay.
to hypnotic suggestions. For example, people who are highly imaginative,
Okay.
those who tend to get absorbed in their thoughts and feelings,
Hmm.
or those who are generally more open to new experiences might be more responsive to hypnotic technique.
So like someone who loves getting lost in a good book or daydreams frequently
Yeah.
might be more suggestible than someone who's very grounded and practical.
That's a reasonable assumption, although, of course, it's not quite that simple.
Right.
There are many factors that can influence an individual's suggestibility, including their current emotional state,
Hmm.
their level of trust in the hypnotist, and even their prior beliefs about hypnosis.
Okay, so it's really complex.
It is.
Yeah. This is really making me think about the ethical considerations surrounding hypnosis.
Yeah.
If it's possible to influence people's thoughts and behaviors through suggestion, even on a subtle level,
Right.
it seems like there's a lot of potential for misuse.
You raise a very important point, and the ethical implications of hypnosis are something that we should definitely discuss in more detail.
Okay.
But before we get into that, I'd like to circle back to the concept of mass hypnosis
Okay.
and explore some real-world examples of how it might be operating.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of examples are we talking about?
Well, think about the way certain ideologies or beliefs
Quick
can
share.
spread through a population. Sometimes it's through overt propaganda,
Right.
but often it's through more subtle means like using emotionally charged language, repeating certain narratives over and over again,
Yeah.
or appealing to people's fears and desires.
So it's not about someone literally hypnotizing the masses,
Right.
but more about how certain messages can become so pervasive that they start to shape our collective reality.
Precisely. And when these messages are coming from sources that we trust, whether it's the media or political leaders, religious figures, even our own social circles,
Yeah.
we're much more likely to accept them without really critically evaluating them.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like
Yeah.
we're being subtly nudged in certain directions
Yeah.
without even realizing it. Are there any historical examples
Yeah.
of this kind of mass suggestion at work?
Definitely think about the rise of totalitarian regimes in the 20th century.
Okay.
Leaders like Hitler and Stalin were
Right.
masters of propaganda, using powerful rhetoric, carefully crafted imagery, and relentless repetition
Mm,
to instill fear, loyalty, and obedience in their followers.
okay. Those are obviously extreme examples,
They are.
but I can see how the same principles could be applied in less dramatic ways, like in advertising or political campaigns.
Absolutely. Advertisers are experts at using suggestion to create desire for their products.
Right.
They often appeal to our emotions, associating their products with feelings of happiness, success, or belonging.
Right.
And political campaigns use very similar techniques, crafting messages that tap into our fears, hopes, and aspirations.
It's fascinating and a little bit alarming
Yeah.
to think about how much of our reality might be shaped by these subtle forms of suggestion. It makes me wonder, are there ways to protect ourselves from being unduly influenced, especially in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information?
That's an excellent question and one that we'll definitely address
Okay.
as we continue our deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, let's transition into that crucial topic of ethical considerations
Yeah.
surrounding hypnosis.
Oh.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, the potential for misuse is a valid concern.
Right.
And it's important to understand how to use this powerful tool responsibly and ethically.
Okay. I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right.
All right. So we're back and ready to tackle The ethics of hypnosis, which is
Yes,
something that you brought up earlier, and it is a really important consideration.
it is.
We've been talking about how powerful suggestion can be,
Right.
both for individuals and for society as a whole.
Yeah,
So naturally, the question of responsible use comes up.
absolutely. Hypnosis is a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Right. So where do we even begin to unpack the the ethics of something as seemingly intangible as hypnosis?
Well, I think one of the most fundamental ethical considerations is informed consent.
Okay.
Just like in any other therapeutic context, it's
Okay.
crucial that individuals fully understand what hypnosis is,
Yeah.
what it involves,
Hmm.
any potential risks or benefits before they agree to participate.
That makes perfect sense. People should be active and willing participants
Yes.
in the process,
Yes.
not subjects of some hypnotic experiment without their full knowledge or consent.
Exactly. It's about respecting individual autonomy
Right.
and making sure people feel safe and empowered throughout the process.
Okay.
And this includes being transparent about the techniques being used,
Yeah.
the goals of the session,
Uh-huh.
and any limitations of hypnosis.
So no, like, secretly implanting subliminal messages or making people do things against their will.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that gives hypnosis a bad rap
Exactly.
in popular culture.
Yeah, ethical practitioners are focused on helping people access their own inner resources
Right.
and make positive changes in their life.
Okay.
It's about empowering individuals, not manipulating them.
That makes sense. What about the qualifications of the practitioner themselves? Like,
Yeah.
is there a certain level of training or certification required to practice hypnosis ethically?
Well, unfortunately, the field of hypnosis isn't as regulated as some other healthcare professions.
Right.
So this means there can be a wide range of training and experience among practitioners.
Hmm.
So it's really important for individuals to do their research.
Yeah.
Choose a qualified professional who has the appropriate credentials,
Okay.
a strong ethical framework,
Yeah.
and experience working with the specific issues that they're seeking help with.
So it's kind of a buyer beware situation when it comes to finding a hypnotherapist.
It can be.
Yeah. What are some red flags people should watch out for?
Well, I would say be wary of practitioners who make grandiose claims
Okay.
or promise unrealistic results.
Uh-huh.
Hypnosis can be a powerful tool, but it's not a magic cure-all.
Right.
Um, Also, be cautious of anyone who pressures you into hypnosis
Yeah.
or dismisses your concerns or questions.
Okay.
A responsible practitioner will always prioritize your comfort and well-being.
It sounds like trust is paramount. You need to feel safe and comfortable with the person who's guiding you through this experience.
Absolutely.
We've been talking about the individual level,
Yeah.
but I'm also thinking back to our conversation about mass hypnosis
Right.
and those societal influences.
Yeah.
Are there ethical considerations on that broader level as well?
Absolutely. When we're talking about influence on a societal level,
Yeah.
things get even more complex.
Okay.
The ethical considerations really center around the intent and transparency of those who are wielding influence.
Hmm.
Think about the difference between a political leader who uses manipulative tactics to incite fear and division
Right.
versus one who promotes open dialogue and encourages critical thinking.
So it's not just about the techniques themselves, but about the underlying motivations and goals
Exactly.
of the person or group using those techniques.
Right. In the context of marketing and advertising, for example,
Yeah.
transparency is key. Are consumers being clearly informed about the persuasive techniques being used?
Hmm.
Or are they being manipulated without their knowledge or consent?
It seems like education and awareness are crucial,
They are?
both for individuals and for society as a whole.
Yes.
The more we understand about the power of suggestion and how it operates,
Right.
the better equipped we are to navigate those influences and make conscious choices.
I couldn't agree more. By demystifying hypnosis,
Yeah.
promoting ethical practices,
Mm-hmm.
and encouraging open dialogue, we can harness its potential for positive change
Right.
while minimizing the risk of misuse.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I
I
feel like I'm seeing the world in a whole new light.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, me too. Um, so we've covered so much ground today,
We have.
from the science behind suggestion to the
Right.
therapeutic applications of hypnosis and the broader societal implications.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there a final takeaway message you want to leave our listeners with?
If there's one key message to take away from our deep dive today, it's this: we all have the power to influence and be influenced.
Hmm.
Cultivating awareness,
Yeah.
Developing critical thinking skills
Okay.
and embracing ethical practices will empower us to navigate this complex world of influence more consciously and intentionally.
That's a powerful reminder.
Yeah,
This has been an incredible deep dive into the world of hypnosis.
it has.
A huge thanks to you for sharing your knowledge and insights with us.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey.
Yes,
Remember to stay curious, keep those minds open, and don't forget to question everything.
absolutely.